You've lived your life rat race ready. Now you being replaced by AI, software, robots, and outsourcing. This 22-year-old book predicted all of it and insists there will only be one form of job security left. Can you guess what it is? Because it ain't coding, it ain't computer science, it's something a lot of us have been trained to suppress. Now, I ain't about to tell you to meditate, journal, or practice gratitude. This story is about economic survival, and the data behind it been hiding in plain sight for over 2 decades. Most of what you've been taught about getting ahead is already obsolete. The push-through playbook has expired. The future has spoken. Man can't survive on muscle alone, and don't get it twisted. The strong will survive, but it's the niggas who adapt to change that's gonna feed them. Type bars in the comments if you get that. If you are always stalling on your own ideas contrary to popular opinion, you don't have a discipline issue. I'm Tijuana Jackson. I help people understand why they follow through keeps breaking down and what to do next. I host a live 90-minute workshop where Romani, Malco, and I help you identify what's interfering with your follow through so you can move your ideas forward. Link is in the description. Now let me take you back. My partner in crime, actor Romani Malco, was at his 40-year-old virgin co-star Elizabeth Banks' house playing a game of celebrity. Now, during this game night, somebody put Romani onto a book by Daniel Pink, A Whole New Mind, Why Right-Brainers Will Rule the Future, and something locked in. See, by 1996, Romani had already tasted internet success. He started his first internet business and ran it for a decade. So here we is in the middle of an explosion, and now a book drops that says right-brained people will rule the future. Well, it didn't take long for Romani to connect the dots. He already knew the internet was the playground. The book just confirmed that creativity was the currency. Now, in this book written over 20 years ago, the author Daniel Pink highlighted 3 forces that was reshaping the economy. He called them abundance, Asia, and automation. Let me translate that into English for the people in the back. Abundance means consumers don't just want stuff that works no more. They want stuff that looks good, feels good, and means something. You can't just sell a product, you gotta sell an experience, a feeling, a transformation. The days of it gets the job done is over. If your offer don't move people emotionally, you already behind the curve. Asia means routine work is getting shipped overseas. Data entry, manufacturing, technical support. If a task can be broken down into a checklist and handed to somebody in another country for a fraction of the cost, it will be, and it has been. So while you were sleeping on your potential, your job description was being emailed to somebody willing to do it for less. That ain't a threat, that's a fact with a side of tandoori. Buzz! The automation part means software and machines are replacing anything that runs on logic and repetition. Anything a computer can learn to do, a computer will do faster, cheaper, without calling in sick or asking for a raise. So if your skill set is routine, logical, and repeatable, you are now competing with robots, foreign labor markets, software, and algorithms. And spoiler alert, you ain't winning that fight. You can't outwork a machine. You can't underbid a country with a lower cost of living. And you damn sure can't outlogic artificial intelligence. Now, when Romani read all of this in 2005, it hit different because he was already watching it happen in real time. The internet was democratizing everything. The gatekeepers was losing grip. And creators, and I don't mean content creators, I'm talking about people who know how to create solutions to real problems. They understood how to connect with people. They was already building empires out their bedrooms, they Winnebagos, and car seats, which is literally where I was recording. In a car, looking like a man who collected money from scantily clad women in heels on street corners. But here's where the book really got interesting. Pink didn't just diagnose the problem, he prescribed the cure. He said the people who thrive in this new economy will be the ones who master 6 aptitudes, 6 skills. And at the center of those 6 things was one key skill that no robot, no algorithm, no outsourced labor force can replicate. So what are these 6 things? Design, story, symphony, play, meaning, and empathy. Now, I'm going to walk you through each one, not from a textbook, from my life, because me and Romani didn't sit down with a whiteboard and map this out like some Silicon Valley startup. Some of this was deliberate, some of it was natural, some of it was straight up trial and error where we stumbled into the answer, looked back at the book and said, damn, this man was right. And some of it took us nearly 2 decades to fully commit to. So buckle up. Pink says design is no longer a luxury. It's an economic necessity. Consumers expect things to look and feel intentional intentional. But for us, design happened by accident. On a last-minute whim, Romani decided to attend his 10-year high school reunion and ended up talking to a white dude with long hair and a goatee named Kyler. You know what they talked about? Fishing. Not branding, not business, not content strategy, fishing. But Romani did manage to squeeze in some Tijuana Jackson jokes between bass and bait. And to Romani's surprise, when he flew home, Kyler had sent him sketches he'd done of Tijuana Jackson. Me. Unsolicited, no invoice, no pitch deck, just pure artistry from a man who drew because he loved to draw. Now, Kyler wasn't just doodling. This man was other level, the type of artist who would eventually go on to design movie posters and shit. But at that point, he was just creating for the joy of it. Didn't ask for a dime. Him and Romani built a working relationship, and the quality of that work remains unmatched to this day. That face, those shades, that collar, those teeth, the mug you see everywhere, that came from a conversation about fishing at a high school reunion. The first dime Tijuana Jackson ever made came from supporters like you insisting we put that mug on a t-shirt. You can't plan that kind of divine intervention. You can only be open enough to receive it, and Kyler also ended up marrying one of the baddest sisters from Romani's high school days, so clearly the man had taste in more than just art. Pause. Now let's talk about story. Pink argues that in an economy flooded with data and information, facts alone don't persuade. Story does. Because the human brain is wired to retain narrative over statistics. And the people who master storytelling will have an unfair advantage in business, leadership, and influence. Now here's the thing. We didn't read that chapter and go, oh, let's start telling stories. We were already doing it. You can go back to Tijuana Jackson's YouTube videos that are 13, 14 years old, and the blueprint was there from day one. We was using storytelling to deliver deep messages about personal development, finding purpose, and escaping the rat race. Yes, even back then, I was still on brand like Tony the Tiger. Tight bars in the comments if you get that. Folks got so wrapped up in my stories that they just started assuming Tijuana Jackson was a real person. A real ex-con turned life coach walking around giving people game. Everything we spoke about came from lived experience. Nothing was made up. Nothing. Including sleeping on the roof of the county jail. You can't write fiction that specific. Only life invoices you with them kind of receipts. Bars, which is probably why Gillian Wallow tried to sabotage my movie some 12, 13 years later. And in retrospect, I realized they didn't slander me and my movie out of jealousy. It was out of believability, plausibility. The character was so convincing, so rooted in truth that it threatened the people who needed it to be fake. At the time, Romani and I took offense and went in on them like 99-pound freshly showered cellmates. Even their audience started turning on them. By the way, now would be a good time to hit the like button if you like something. And if you motivated as hell, hit that notification bell. But if you invested in seeing my channel grow, we can't rely on the algorithm, so I'm gonna need you to share this with your folks. Pause. And guess what else Gillian Wallow's audience started doing? They started telling the story of the Tijuana Jackson trajectory with conviction and passion. Sharing Tijuana Jackson quotes, each of them explaining how Tijuana Jackson had influenced their lives through humor and storytelling. Now they had stories of their own to tell, explaining that Tijuana Jackson been 10 toes down long before Wallow was a free man. And that right there, that's the power of story. When your audience is willing to go to war for your narrative using their own lived experiences as ammunition, you've achieved something no marketing budget can buy. Author Daniel Pink predicted that story would be essential. He just couldn't predict that the proof would come from an audience in a comment section defending a movement that started in the car and ended up in their conscience. Just a sad tale of two podcasters who picked the wrong one. Type bars in the comments if you get that. Now let's discuss symphony, because this one took time. Pink describes symphony as the ability to see the big picture, to synthesize rather than analyze, to draw people into your work, your philosophy, your methodology, so that as a collective you share and agree upon a certain way of seeing the world. In truth, from day one, we had a philosophy. We believed that purpose was the fountain of fulfillment, not motivation, not discipline, not waking up at 5 a.m. and drinking celery water like a sociopath. Purpose. We believe that developing a deeper understanding of our own emotional suffering, our own trauma, how we may have been mishandled as children was the key to freedom. Not just understanding what our parents did to us, but understanding what was done to them. Because most people walking around mad at their parents don't realize their parents was walking around mad at their parents. Hurt is hereditary until somebody break the lease. Pause. And once you see that clearly, something shifts. The anger softens. The resentment loosens its grip. The fear of abandonment, the deep sense of inadequacy, it don't disappear overnight, but it stops running your life. You start to see value in healing, not as something soft, as something strategic. Because a man who understands his own wound is a man who can help somebody else stop bleeding. The symphony was always there. It was the whole point of me being Tijuana Jackson. From day one, we saw TJ as a movement, not just a channel, a philosophy, not just a character. And even when all of Romani's Hollywood peers thought I was just some stupid character he might be taken too far, we always knew the delivery was culturally aligned and more powerful than people were able to see at the time. But we needed time to refine it, time to let the methodology catch up to the mission. And thanks to technology and the changing scope of how people consume content, now we are force. The symphony is undeniable. It started out as something we called metaphysical science and eventually became the Nearapy framework, which is now being taught at institutions like schools and reentry programs. That shift from content to ecosystem is where symphony lives. And most creators never make that transition because they too addicted to views to build a vision. We had to learn to stop chasing the algorithm and start building something the algorithm would have to chase. Pause! Now let's discuss play. Pink says play is not the opposite of work. Play is a catalyst for creativity, innovation, and connection. Humor, games, laughter. These ain't distractions from serious work. They accelerate serious work. For us, humor was always deliberate from day one because the stories I was telling was tragic, real tragic. The kind of stories where if I told them straight with no comedic cushion, people would either change the channel or call a hotline. But see, in the life that we knew, comedy was always woven into some of the most horrific experiences. Maybe it was a coping mechanism for the barrage of traumatic events we'd experienced from very young. But there was no way we could approach this content without leaning into Romani's greatest strength, which is comedy. We also understood from day one that it would be very difficult to turn away from somebody who was not only speaking to your life, but making you laugh in the process. We always knew that humor would be the Trojan horse to deeper healing messages. You laugh first, then it hits you. Then you can't stop thinking about it. And by the time you realize you just received deep counseling, you already hit subscribe. That's not manipulation, that's delivery. Pause! And the proof is in the 15 years of my YouTube comment section. Because one of the most common pieces of feedback you'll find from our audience to this very day is, I came for the laughs and stayed for the game. You can't buy that kind of brand loyalty. You can only earn it by being funny enough to get them in the dough and real enough to make them never want to leave. Type bars in the comments if you get that. Now let's discuss meaning. Pink says meaning is the pursuit of purpose, significance, and something larger than yourself. And honestly, this is the one that found us before we went looking for it. Back in 2012, I recall doing only my second live stream episode on Justin TV, because back then you couldn't even live stream on YouTube. And a woman called into the show, literally called in over the phone to tell her true story about being manhandled as a child. I instantly knew it was serious, but I did not have the option to break character because this woman was convinced she was speaking to a real person. So in full character, I listened, proceeded to coach her into not only expressing how she felt, but to seeking out help. Live, on air, as Tijuana Jackson. That was on a Sunday evening at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, March 12th. By Monday afternoon, I had an email in my inbox from a woman named Megan Angelo who wanted to talk to Tijuana Jackson. Nigga, I thought I was going to jail because back then a lot of criminals would call into the show and confess their crimes. I always tried to edit that stuff out before uploading to YouTube because I ain't wanted to be known as no snitch. The last thing you need as an ex-con is a reputation for snitching. That'll get you boxed up faster than high cholesterol. Pause. Turns out, Megan Angelo was a writer for the New York Times. She found Tijuana Jackson fascinating, especially for how I handle that woman who had been abused. They gave your brother damn near full-page write-up, which definitely catapulted me into another stratosphere. And that's when meaning stopped being a concept and became a calling. That's when I began to realize the depth of my responsibility as Tijuana Jackson. Because in that moment, what we was doing wasn't entertainment, it was intervention. People wasn't just watching, they was healing. They was confessing things to a character on a live stream that they couldn't say to their own families. And if that ain't meaning, I mean, if providing a safe space for a stranger to unpack the worst thing that ever happened to him through a man in a collared shirt with big teeth, if that ain't purpose, if that ain't meaning, I must not know what purpose and meaning is. Now we come to what I believe is the most critical chapter of this entire book. By the way, everything I talk about on this channel comes back to one issue. It's your failure to follow through on what you say you want. If that's been your pattern, Romani and I are hosting a live 90-minute workshop where we will identify what's interfering with your follow through, and then we'll connect your idea to the thing that makes it worth committing to. You interested in working with some real ones? Link is in the description. Now let's talk about empathy. Like I said, in my opinion, this is the most important chapter of this book. Empathy. The author, Daniel Pink, believed it would become the most valuable human skill in the new economy. The ability to understand what another person, group, or community is experiencing, to feel what they feel, to identify their problems and provide solutions. He argued that no machine, no software, no algorithm could replicate genuine human empathy. And 22 years later, he's been proven right. I've coached free one-on-one sessions for 5 years for free, while Romani was off shooting a million little things. 5 years of pouring into people with no business model, no revenue stream, no return on investment other than watching somebody's life shift because somebody finally listened to them. Not heard them, listened. There's a difference. Hearing is passive. Listening requires empathy. And empathy requires you to have been through enough of your own pain to recognize it in someone else. And the gift of being able to empathize with the very people that America tends to write off has served as one of my biggest blessings. And I've thought about it. Perhaps if I took these teeth out my mouth and presented myself as Romani, I wouldn't have as many hurdles. I'd probably be embraced by more platforms. I'd probably end up on more podcasts. I'd probably get a whole lot more exposure. But at the same time, Tijuana Jackson, the character is a walking, breathing, working demonstration of how each of us can use our pain and creativity to fuel our purpose and meaning, to be of service while honoring our communities and paying our bills. Bars. That's not a gimmick. That's a blueprint in a dope-ass chain. Bars again. My empathy has given me the ability to communicate things in a way that resonates with my dream audience. That's my gift. I demonstrate a level of empathy and curiosity that can't be mimicked, can't be simulated, can't be faked, can't be replaced. As author Daniel Pink put it, that's my job security. For all I know, that's why I'm still here. And that's my message to you. Your ability to empathize with the experiences, challenges, and problems of others is what will distinguish you from the herd of economic slaves and validation seekers. It will distinguish you from the people so blinded by their biases that they are unable to feel beyond their own pain. There's no computer, no robot, no AI tool that can walk through the neighborhoods you walk through, especially if you're in some dunks or some red bottoms. They can't commute the same routes you commute, work beside people and experience the limbic exchange you have with other human beings, then experience an empathy in your heart for the struggles of the very people you encountered along the way. Those experiences can't be outsourced to other countries. The ones who will thrive ain't the loudest or the most connected. It's the ones who can genuinely feel empathy, think critically enough to solve real problems, and persevere because they purpose runs deeper than their popularity. Type bars in the comments if you get that. That's the work you should be doing right now. That idea that won't leave you alone. That startup, that nonprofit, the thing you know in your gut will change your life and the lives of others. That's what I teach. That's my passion. Link in the description. And if you're having a difficult time getting started, I need you to commit to this video right here.